insights that anyone else have? All right. We affirm contention on this EU. The EU transatlantic privacy framework that oversees biometric data sharing is set to fail because of unpredictable regulations. RC23 writes that the European Parliament advises the European Commission not to approve the framework because it fails to create equivalence and protection currently offered under EU regulation. Despite changes made by the US, the LIBE still finds the offer lacking, and the deal covers biometric data sharing. MEPs are concerned about a lack of adherence to a US executive order. The committee members are worried that there is the potential for the order to be changed by US President at any moment. A legislative ban of biometrics ensures predictability and longevity. That's key to European agreement on the new transatlantic privacy framework. NSD 22 writes that embracing necessity and proportionality is a clear shift that could place the EU and the US on the same side of the table in future multilateral negotiations. Stakeholders expressed a preference for a legislative alternative, worrying that an executive order could be overturned by a future president. The European Commission may tie its adequacy determination to maintenance of the legal protections, and the executive order is paired with DOJ regulations designed to address rights actionable in the courts. Negotiators' challenge was not identifying a workable legal structure to implement them. And a new privacy framework spills over to broader multilateral cooperation. NSD 22 continues that the EU-US data privacy framework will be tested. The question now is whether this will become perpetual or serve as a building block for broader multilateral collaboration. And this multilateral cooperation is key to the largest existential threats. Cybersecurity 22 argues that we are facing an ever-growing gap between acceleration of technology and capacity to manage climate pandemics and nuclear risks. That gap becomes existential. Data governance is fragmenting and is affected by a US-EU split over privacy. A fragmented digital world is in dire need of renewed cooperative spirit, and the solution will need to involve alliances crucial in managing existential threats. Mentioned too is the FTC. Energy consolidation is increasing now. Everhart 23 writes that investment in oil and gas companies increased by more than 26%, sitting on record amounts of free cash flow, prompting renewed interest in mergers and acquisitions. Significant consolidation continues as companies look to streamline operations and reduce costs. Unfortunately, the FTC is key to stop these mergers like they did in 2021. French 21 explains that the move is a new push by the FTC to protect society. Scrutiny is rare in the oil and gas sector. The FTC would like to deter mergers. That's because the FTC is overwhelmed with biometrics cases. They are the only agency to deal with that. Nolan 21 furthers that the FTC is increasing its focus on commercial practices relating to consumer biometric information. Until the government enacts legislation and governing the collection, the FTC is positioned to fill the existing void. And their resources are finite and are specifically taken from merger and acquisition priorities. McCabe 18 finds that stagnating funding will test the FTC's ability to examine novel cases. Finite resources litigate which investigations you can pursue. Budget limitations matter when officials are deciding which borderline deals to investigate. All of this limits their enforcement in other areas. Wheeler 21 finds that the FTC has been the agency for solutions. The vast scope of the FTC's responsibilities means oversight must compete with the agency's existing responsibilities and limited resources. Resources would be withdrawn from the FTC's traditional activities. Agencies would be constrained. And gas and oil mergers are an existential crisis as gas monopolies create price volatility that isolates major players, leaving us helpless in volatile times. Coriani 16 explains that reduction of volatility on energy markets and upheavals requires competition and regulations. It's of utmost importance to ensure competition in energy markets to reduce cartelization and irresponsible players. Harnessing the energy sector is existential. Stability in the energy sector would mean technological prowess, leaving the system unreformed, threatens security, and isolates the U.S. internationally. Thus, I am proud to affirm.
Can you send all the evidence on FTC?
Yeah, got it. Let's have the case.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I understand.
What you doing?
Yeah, sounds good.
If anyone needs like anything, we can send after.
to say cheese, subpoint is nuclear power. Biometrics are rapidly improving. Letter 22. Biometrics is experiencing a new resurgence in evolving computing. Devices perform processing on the device. Transit only results of the network. Personal data are never under the threat of leaking as they stay on device. That's crucial for critical infrastructure cybersecurity. Rise 22. Biometric authentication provides identity assurance options undisputable audit trail. This enables public agencies to achieve zero trust and keep America's infrastructure safe. It eliminates password-based risks like ransomware and reconnaissance. Indeed, Furthermore, 6 concludes biometrics have been utilized at 90% of all nuclear power plants in the U.S. Conversely, SIA 20. A ban on government use precludes all applications of the technology like secured access to critical infrastructure. Weakening cybersecurity has 2 impacts. The first is meltdowns. Oppenheimer 16. A cyber attack on a nuclear power plant can trigger a meltdown similar to Fukushima. PSR 9 confirms a major attack on the reactor could result in 500,000 long-term deaths. The second impact is war. Third 19. Escalation could arise from cyber strikes against vital national infrastructure. Major powers, along with Iran and North Korea, have deployed cyber weapons to disrupt power systems. Attacks could lead to a series of tit-for-tat attacks, leading one-sided kinetic attacks, risking nuclear conflict. Extinction is U.S. star 15 finds in nuclear war created an environment too cold and threat to grow food and humans would vanish forever. Subpoint B is medical technology. Data security fears impede medical data sharing. Early 19. Healthcare organizations are accomplishing the desire to share EHR data from research and the risk of data breaches in doing so. Trader writes, as health systems migrate to electronic records, it only takes one system with dirty data to spread the infection and stop a chain reaction of preventable medical errors that could result in loss of life and devastating financial consequences. Thankfully, Yvonne 22 finds biometrics of patients enable sensitive data sharing in between different clinical settings. They accelerate innovation, enhance trust, and improve transparency. This cooperation is key. Wolf 13 writes, scientific problems are beyond the realm of a single scientist. Collaborative research makes it possible to tackle research questions that would otherwise not be feasible. Engelhard 08 writes, innovation in pharmaceuticals and medical devices is necessary to maintain the human species in an ever-changing environment in which new microbial threats may at any time emerge and threaten human survival. Contention 2 is crypto, a central bank digital currency is coming. Smith 23 writes, the fall of SB Bank could inject new impetus into CBDCs. The Fed announced its FedNow service. This could segue into the use of CBDCs as a digital alternative to the fiat dollar. Consumer buying is key as biometrics bridge the gap. Blue Flamingo 21, only 54% of people will trust a digital currency issued by the central bank. The advantages offered by CBDCs will only be realized if consumers trust the tech. A cutting-edge approach to security will be critical. Blending the highest level of security with a familiar payment experience, biometrics maintain the growth rate of national digital currencies and earn the trust of consumers. The result could be CBDCs for all. Thus, Phase 5.3 concludes in the near future, we can expect to see new advancements in technologies in the use of biometrics and digital currencies. Governments may require transactions to be validated using biometrics. The impact of recession, Harbor 21 explains. The switch to centralized monetary policy, central banks can immediately change supply and directly transmit to households instead of influencing behaviors indirectly. Iglesias 12 writes, digital currency could end recessions. Preventing reruns is crucial because Boston University quantifies 100 million people around the world fell into extreme poverty in the last recession in Kuwait. Contention 3 is collateral damage. America currently has the upper hand in AI. Chart 23 reports, in the race for AI dominance, Washington has the upper hand. Unfortunately, a ban crushes the industry. SIA 20 writes, a blanket ban on government use precludes all possible current and future applications of this technology. The alternative would leave us with processes that are much more prone to errors. This stifles broader AI development, bans discourage investment. Pastor 19, biometric laws show how passing legislation discourages the use of AI. Threats of legal action do and will lead to fewer services for customers. Additionally, Freeland 20 argues biometrics can be especially useful for AI innovation. Because AI is fundamentally a data-driven technology, biometric data sets may be used to train an AI model for use in a variety of applications. Empirics proof, Pastor 19 confirms the privacy panic cycle has been a constant over the past century, with similar hysteria about portable cameras, mini mics, and RFID tags. The history shows that bans only delay the benefits of emerging technologies. Innovation is key. J19 writes, AI is generating new security challenges. States that dominate tech progress dominate international relations. The U.S. has been the world's innovation leader. Accordingly, stability has been maintained. If China masters the tech of the future before the Democratic War, this could lead to a drastic shift in the balance of power upsetting global stability. Kim 19 warns China's ascendance as a affirmative power predicts a hegemonic war during the transition period. An inevitable war of Treaty 2. History teaches us that rising powers are a given both, and the declining hegemony sees war as a better option. Sharma 17 confirms such a conflict would end life on Earth because of escalation, the likelihood of nuclear exchange is high. Does Alright.
What was the tag?
See one. It's called say cheese.
Alright, cool. Alright, I'll take first question.
Sure.
Why are CBDCs being implemented now?
Yeah, we say that because of like the fall of SB Bank and like all the things that have happened with like fiat currency.
Okay, cool. Quick follow-up.
Sure.
How did the Fed distinguish their motivation to develop CBDCs like a few days after your card was published?
I don't know, I'm sure you can tell.
They said it was a separate initiative that they're thinking of doing. It's not being developed now. They're just conflating it with some random author who's not even part of the Fed. But that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So, one about like the FTC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, no, not your like on both of your tracks.
Sure.
You talk about like existential like threats, but like not a single one of like you don't like read any evidence as to why pandemics, climate change, or anything needs to extinction. So like, what's your like?
Because they are existential threats. Like our evidence is just like they. It literally says they are existential threats, and that cooperation enables us to actually fight them. I'll take a question. On your AI stuff, why did past bans and regulations not trigger your impacts?
Yeah, we used to say that like because we haven't banned like biometrics. Like we say that biometrics specifically are the most key type of data for AI, which is why like.
Why are they the most key type of data?
Because basically, like if you have AI that do certain things like medical AI and things like that, they're the type of AI that need like.
Okay, cool. That's one part of AI development. Here's the issue with that. We've seen other bans on parts of AI development. Like for example, we saw like Trump ban, like I believe it was like fetus AI innovation. We never saw like any kind of impacts materialize. Other bans happened. None of your impacts happened.
Like the thing is, that's like a very like, hyper-specific part of AI. We're telling you that like when you ban. Like,
that's exactly what you're doing. You're giving me a very hyper-specific part when it's like AI. We're giving you another hyper-specific part of AI that was banned and nothing happened.
Yeah,
but you get a good question.
I just like just another.
Sure.
You said that like you asked me for an example, so I gave you an example. But overall, biometrics use like every type of AI, so like.
I would disagree, but that's fine. Good question.
Wait, so on your argument about the EU, right? So what's the reason that like it's specifically key to like passing biometric bans right now?
Wait, sorry, what is it?
Like what's the uniqueness right now? Like why do you need to pass it?
Because we can do data cooperation if the privacy framework works.
Yeah.
We can't data share unless we agree on the privacy standards for data share.
Yeah, I understand that, but why is it key like right now? Why is it changed?
Like, why is it key now? It's just like so we can cooperate. Like, we need to do clinical trials and things like that. It's like pandemics or just like literally anything that deals with data.
So then pandemics and like all these like external threats are increasing right now. So
I mean, they're coming soon. Like, we read evidence that like all these existential threats are coming soon. We need to combat them. Quick question on your like, quick question on your like medicine stuff. So why does medical development need biometrics?
basically like the same thing I told you on the AI thing. Right? Basically, when you have data security, when you have like data insecurity, you can't share things and you can't do research, right? What happens is like these research institutions want this biometric and like it's called data, right? But basically the thing that's happening is like if they try to send it, they're like afraid of getting hacked.
You're still not giving me a warrant as to why it's key, but that's fine.
Biometrics are secure because like I'll be the person that's on it. So, yeah.
Yes.
Just straight down there, because it's in my doc.
What was it?
It's just straight down your case. I just sent my speech doc there.
How come?
I mean, it shouldn't be just a PFS. It's not like.
Okay.
Is everyone good?
Yeah. I got one second. Okay.
See the doc at the top.
Yeah, it's there.
Let's start nuclear facilities. A couple of responses. One, biometrics can't prevent ransomware attacks, but will actively increase their likelihood. Strickland 17 explains biometrics aren't a surefire way to stop a ransomware attack. These tools were just gateways. Ransomware to infect systems isn't a far-fetched idea. Second, their form evidence is quite bad. It's an article about Disney World that just mentions 90% of nuclear power employees have a biometric ID card to get in. That's not key to stop cyber attacks. That's key to stop physical hacking. Free biometric data is targeted out. Quantum attacks coming. The status quo merely incentivizes attackers. Masali, if anyone explains quantum computers compromise biometric ID documents. This document relies on asymmetric cryptography, which could be easily broken by quantum computers with sufficient capabilities by reverting back to the private key for the public key. In Chinese quantum computer attacks are existential. Herman explains in 21 attacks by China would be far worse. A quantum computer will gain access to major centers this will allow the attacker to spread malware undetected, which will severely hinder recovery for months. The damage will be similar to that of an electromagnetic pulse attack, but stealthier and more protracted. That kills 90% of the U.S. Larson writes that when a large electromagnetic pulse event occurs, there's 100% certainty 9 out of 10 people in the U.S. could die within a year. Or there's no impact to meltdowns. Farley 16 explains imagine the critical principle laws. There's enough people run generators for 42 days, even if we assume a worst case imagination scenario in which would not be enough time to bring additional fuel. Would it be a nuclear Armageddon? If they don't, we North Korea and Iran have capabilities cards, so we'll do it for them. That gives us a comparative edge. And quantum attacks linked to both countries keep attacks small so they don't escalate. And Lewis 18 explains Iran and North Korea goals political coercion, not destruction. I'm talking about critical infrastructure that dominate the media. Catastrophic attacks are very unlikely. Let's go on to medical attack. One, the AFC prerequisite. No data sharing can happen in a world without the EU framework, because the prerequisite prerequisite for major health organizations. Korean Dick 21 explains data privacy frameworks play a critical role in international health research. Transatlantic data transfers are critical to clinical trials. Multi-country trials are including more diverse set of participants. Their link is about securing HR data, but they don't tell you from whom. That's because hospital tax aren't providing more on top. Hospitals cutting cybersecurity budget. Biometrics are key. SME 23 explains transport tax through healthcare have declined significantly since budget allocations for transport are in decline. 3 EHR isn't implemented in most hospitals. This means their link is much smaller than they think. Goldfarb 22 explains there's been little AI adoption in healthcare. EHR systems are largely not compatible across providers that service different hospitals and healthcare facilities. It can be difficult to build useful AIs. Their Engelhard card is from 2008 that says pharma innovation saves humans during dangerous events. The people who died from COVID would disagree. Their evidence is empirically denied, but innovation is already down right now, which is why Solo 23 displays for returns continue to fall in a year-on-year 2% decrease in underlying R&D expenditures. Let's go on to crypto specifically, though. There you need to set the Fed now is the first step, which is CBDC, but that's not true. They are complaining two different things. Steve 411 explains the Fed now platform is not a CBDC. It's not connected to the Fed's exploration of a possible digital currency. At that point, they don't have uniqueness. Second, security would have to be perfect. Any disruption on cyber medical tech is fully defense. Here that takes out trust. Any disruption CBDC would lead to their impact. Answer 22 explains an attack disruption of CBDC arrangement may lead to following effects that pose broader risk to financial markets, economies, and institutions. And at this point, they're not solving. There's no recession. They don't have uniqueness to invest. Their impact is long-term time frame. The app outweighs. Leave it 23. The U.S. is seeing a decline in inflation and increase in employment. American firms expanding their payrolls. Consumer prices actually fell. U.S. economy will likely grow throughout 2023. He insists a soft landing remains possible. Let's go on to the argument about AI. At the top, AI innovation has already plateaued. IBL 22 explains AI has plateaued despite high adoption. This is the main conclusion of the global survey. Talent shortage among data scientists after initial exuberance. Second, even Apple has pumped their brakes. DS33 explains Apple replied with not using ChatGPT is a cause for concern. Apple pumped the brakes for generative AI. 3, their SIA evidence isn't specific to just the biometric ban. Other bans can trigger the link. Fetal tissue research was banned under Trump. That should have triggered the link. Bomb in 22. Fetal tissue research has been around for decades. Trump stopped the work. Even federal laws that protracted research felt vulnerable to courts. 4, there is no security challenge from AI. Structural barriers exist to China beating us in AI. 22 explains China looks less likely to overtake the U.S. than Japan looked to dominate computers in the 80s. China alleged data advantage is hugely overblown. Surveillance data doesn't give China an advantage in applying AI drug discovery or self-driving cars. The 100 most cited patents, not a single one comes from China. Chinese innovation mainly focused on incrementally improving tech conceived elsewhere. 5th, in the absence of bureaucracy, EU cooperation solves any China's threat. No need for U.S. heads Mueller and Ryan. 21 explained Biden should embrace the global agenda. Europeans are not developing in order to relaunch Euro-Atlantic cooperation. It is an invitation to crowds a comprehensive Western response to the challenge posed by China's economic rise and increasing political assertiveness. Transatlantic data dialogue remains anchored in debate over global technology and societal resilience. Did you see I skipped the card in red, 7 22 CBDC? MICHEO. It's the one in red there.
I'll take was
Yep. Also, where did you send the doc? It should be in the email chain.
Did you reply?
I think so.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
okay. It'll be our case, their case. Way.
Okay.
One other thing, could you speak slightly louder?
Yeah, I got you.
Time starts now. On stuff with they say bio increase attacks. No, it's not. Obviously, the biometric data is predicted to use on the network. It can't be solved or be hacked through malware. They say contacts happen. No, because the biometric tech for nuclear facilities happening on the network. Like quantum attacks cannot happen. It's also like case response and no code Iraq can also attack us. They say no meltdowns. That's not true. Our indicates that meltdowns happen right now if they were to be attacked. Go to a medtech. We'll see the EHRs on the data and also correct. But also the breaches that the EU cannot share right now. We'll talk about that on their case. go to crypto, we'll concede that the Fed now is not a CB, a DC. That takes that our questions cannot be solved. It takes that their economic freedom is bad. Go to AI. They say innovation is down right now. No, our cultural evidence indicates the current race very close to the US can still take the edge. They say Apple like stopped doing like innovation. That's not true. Even if commercial innovation is down right now, we argue that overall innovation that the US can bring from bio is key to combating China. They say other bans trigger it. No, it's not, because biometrics is really key to AI, because biometrics train models of AI. Absent that biometrics, AI models cannot exist. They say China is beating the US in AI right now. That's not true. Our evidence indicates that China and the US are in a current race over AI innovation. They say cooperation solves. I should say cross up of their case. Go to their case. On the EU, there's no link. It's being solved right now. Loma is trying to the EU just announced to reach an agreement with the US on a review translating a data flows deals. That means that their argument's already being solved for. This also takes the empiric on our case because it indicates the US is already doing the data right now because that their argument should have already happened. Second, the US and the EU always have incentive to stop things like risk, like pandemics and nuclear extinction, which means that they always have the ability to cooperate. It solves back for their arguments. But even more so, things like climate cooperation and NATO in the past prove that their arguments are already going to be solved for in the future. Third, their link evidence never says the word biometrics once. It just says that their security and privacy risks, but biometrics aren't the issue. At that point, biometric bans aren't the actual solvency to their argument. A bunch of other things can solve the issue, not just biometric bans. Also, on their impact, there is never once a quantification about what these existential scenarios lead to or where they are. Insofar as a biometric ban is domestic-based, how can they solve for pandemics across the world or nuclear risks in other countries? At that point, the EU and the US are not solved for their emissions. They cannot win the impact. Also, don't let them read a new convention or new opinion. Some is very abusive. On FTC, their ignored evidence is the sector's only increase in investment because they bounced back from COVID. At that point, their argument is a temporary fix. Insofar as our argument is long-term because they solve back for AI innovation. We also predict their case because when we have this, we're able to solve back for the different things like climate change, also that they risk that they talk about in their case. Also, their evidence comes from the exact time that COVID ended. At that point, it's probably an effect of COVID, not what they say in their case. But then no link it because FTC can't solve for mergers. Their own French evidence believes that FTC all they do is deter mergers. At that point, they have no incentive because these companies always have money. At that point, because they can't stop them because mergers always go in and keep merging to make more profits. At that point, they have no solvency. FTC can't solve for their own impact. But then their Nolan link evidence is misconstrued. The FTC is not facing lawsuits or biometric issues. In fact, their evidence that FTC is focusing on using biometrics to help commercial consumers. At that point, it is in the FTC's best interest to use biometrics. At that point, their argument goes to us because FTC just gets a benefit from using biometrics. Then there is no link between gas and oil and all the things that they talk about in their case. There's never once an internal link extension and the argument is why these things are existential threats. They just say, oh, it's existential. No, it's not. Not a single one of the evidence links extinction or any impact. At that point, they have no impact on only the arguments. Don't allow them to bring a new impact in the summary speech. Also, AI is a threat to their case because they have better tapping and free of FTC human abilities because AI is doing a lot of their jobs. Also, AI is pretty much all we process FTCs is we solve for their impact better. Also, insofar as a war happens in China, all of their impacts are exacerbated because they cannot solve things that the EU is sharing. If the EU is fighting a war in China, or we can solve for FTCs as part of facing global issues, not the ones at home. At that point, you're always putting our AI innovation link over their FTC argument and their EU argument. Also, there is not an impact in any of the arguments. They'll bring a new internal link extension in the summary speech. It's gone.
Can you send your cards?
Yeah, they're just like. Yeah, there's like 2 cards on it.
Do you have like the doc with your analytics?
Yeah.
I can send that's one that.
Okay. We'll wait on that.
Yeah. The implications start here, but just everything's like, and what is that? You just put that beside that. Yeah, just put the doc on. I just sent the implications. I just said that.
What's in those are correct.
Yeah.
Are you guys prepping now? So?
No, we just we send our
Yeah, we're waiting on that because we're taking some prep.
Okay, I think we can still prep this.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was questions. Okay.
Oh yeah, we're waiting for whether it happens.
Yeah, just let us know.
Oh yeah, I'll let you know whenever we get it. Okay. All right, looks like this is a little slow.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Weird Microsoft school email.
Yeah.
You know what? It's fine. We can probably take it.
Actually,
Oh, we just got it. Oh, okay. We just got both. All right.
That's second. Yeah, that's what we say. Yes. We stopped our lives. Oh, we're sorry. Wait, we're sorry. Right. You have 150? You have 155 left. Are you good for us?
Yeah.
Can I have the first question?
Yeah.
Can you just repeat what you said on like our argument or on like the nuclear stuff on your C1? This was kind of unclear.
So yeah. So first on IO can solve, we just concept or miss that like IO is getting better right now and they uniquely solve these things. That it would increase because it's on the network and then the same thing about quantum, like the way in which like they store this data is different to what like these quantum attacks would be.
Okay, so just the only two responses for biometrics and solving.
No, that was just to the
We solve for
to
quantum.
the terms.
Okay,
And
so
then the road runs. Yeah.
what was the last thing you said? Like after you answered the terms.
What was that?
So it was biometrics or solving. We solve for quantum. What was the next response? The last response.
Oh, on what do you mean?
Like was that the only thing that was said? Like it's not a hard question. I just want.
Oh yeah, and then on quantum, and then you said, and then in response to no melt, you said no doesn't happen.
You have a question.
And we cross out that the no code on this.
You have a question. Then.
Okay. Let's go to your guys' argument about FTC. Sure. So your guys' evidence says that FTC is overwhelmed. Says that they're just using biometrics like for their like commercial stuff, right?
That's
At that
not
point,
true.
like why would you like
that's
you know,
just like
that's what your
that
evidence
says.
says.
It specifically does say to everyone. You can look to our Macabre evidence about the resource trade-off because the FTC is finite. You can look at the Nolan evidence, which
Wait,
shows
but
the FTC is
your
overwhelmed.
evidence.
You can also look at the uniqueness, which tells you that mergers are up 25%.
Wait. I know. I mean, like I get that. Like you're like Nolan evidence. Like the first one is the FTC is increasing focus on commercial practices.
Sure.
Like at that point, if they're doing themselves, why would they like stop doing that?
They are doing the commercial practices. That is biometrics. The problem with
Yeah,
that
but
is it means they can't do mergers. That's why the this is true.
I'm
I'm
just
just
saying,
saying,
like,
question at them.
isn't that in
this
their
for a
own
minute?
interest?
So I'm going to take a question. We can on this for a minute. You say that we solve for quantum, right? You just make this blanket statement that somehow biometrics are going to solve for quantum attacks, right? Why are
Yeah.
quantum attacks happening right now?
I mean, I would say no. I'm seeing this like it's not relevant so far.
Wait,
data.
hold up. You just said why quantum attacks happening is not relevant at the point in which you can see the fact that quantum attacks are happening because they want to steal biometric data. How at all is it
Wait,
not
we
relevant?
also say it's like on the network data, they like can't like steal it.
Wait.
Data because like if you go to like a nuclear facility, like there's like not much data to steal.
Are quantum attacks happening only on nuclear facilities though? Because that's not what Herman
I mean-
says. Herman says happens in every single sector. So even if your evidence is true, the response to one thing.
I mean, but I would say like insofar as it goes on like the network or the cloud, the quantum attacks don't matter.
Okay. You can have a question then. Like the last 15 seconds.
Let's just talk about uses the word like biometric.
No, it does. I mean, it's pretty
So
specific.
insofar as like the concern is privacy, which I agree with, sure.
Yeah.
Why does like a blanket ban on like biometrics?
I mean, that's time. You can look at Percy, Fantasy.
I mean,
which
I
is
mean, yeah,
specific
I have a
topics.
case that
I mean, that's
I feel like one
We have one.
left. Sorry.
yes. So. We don't need it. It's just about this security.
Our case, their case, somewhere in between. All right. Is anyone not ready? Yeah, just like our case, their case, somewhere in between. All right. Anyone not ready? Okay, cool. The round is over on EU. The proposed EU-US data privacy framework is set to fail soon due to the lack of American privacy protections with biometrics. In the current world, the European Court of Justice will always block the framework. Without this framework, we will never see any meaningful cooperation between the EU and the US, as those involved view the privacy framework as a building block for all future collaboration. EU-US cooperation is key to solve all global threats, preventing extinction scenarios by creating progress on climate change, pandemics, and nuclear risks. Let's go to their response. The first thing they tell you is that the EU just announced agreements. First of all, we post-date is not happening. Secondly, it doesn't matter if the legislator passed it because courts already repealed the issue. When the courts repeal it, it can't happen in the first place. And they tell you how the US and EU always have the incentive. Two things here. First of all, our evidence is very explicit. It says that data sharing is a key building block to future multilateral cooperation, which means it's always going to be key to increasing effective cooperation in the future. Secondly, our evidence is pretty clean in telling you how data sharing is very key to things like clinical trials. And we need biometric data to create effective clinical trials. But then, let's go to the third response where they tell you how our evidence set never says that biometrics is key. Again, our evidence is very explicit. It is a key building block to future cooperation. They just don't respond to that evidence. Then they tell you how there's no specificity about our extinction scenarios. We tell you all the existential scenarios that our evidence literally explicitly says are existential. But then they tell you how if the EU is fighting a war with China, then none of our impacts happen. But in reality, we pre-direct because any kind of EU-US cooperation will prevent escalation from happening in the first place. We're never going to see any war materialize if the EU and US are able to cooperate and prevent war from happening. Onto the main debate. Two things here. First of all, extinction will always be the biggest impact on the ground. We are literally eradicating these species. None of any smaller impacts can happen. Secondly, always refer our linkage to extinction because we literally relate to every single possible existential scenario because the EU and US are able to access and prevent those scenarios from happening. Let's go to their case. addressing physical compromises, which means it literally doesn't matter to cyber, but secondly, they never tell you that North Korea and Iran has sufficient capabilities. We tell you they're defensive but can't actually do it. On the defensive stuff, terminal defense here that they concede, EHR is like pretty non-unique, it's always implemented. Let's go to AI. What they really mishandle is literally conceding that Chinese AI innovation is down and not competitive with the US. Unique evidence that they themselves have said, literally says, that the US industries are dominating every form of the AI race. That means that none of their attacks can actually materialize. Read their unique evidence, and it's an underlined sentence that literally says, we're dominating the AI race. That's really clean because that means that none of their attacks actually materialize. We're not going to see it happen. Secondly, other bans should have triggered the leak. We give you historical evidence saying that Trump had a ban on fetus like AI innovation. None of their attacks actually materialized. All they tell you is that biometrics are key, but what they literally told us at first cross is that it's only key to the medical industry. It's only hyper-specific to an industry. The same thing happened with Trump's ban, and none of their attacks actually happened. It's a pretty clean half ballot. We win the biggest link into extinction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so it's just going to be oh yeah. Okay. So it's just going to be our case and then their case. Sorry, our case, where your case.
Where it is?
What?
Like which?
Oh, AI. Okay. AI is the cleanest place to go in this round for us. But let me tell you that since an AI ban includes all applications of AI, it ends America's AI advantage because biometric data is used to train AI, basically approved by state laws destroying advancements. That allows China to gain leading innovation, allowing China to overtake the US hegemonically, risking a transition war that risks nuclear miscalculation, extinction by a famine because there's literally like no sun. They give a couple of responses here. First, they say that like we can see that China's like can't win the AI race like right now. That's literally our entire argument. Right now, because the US is blending like biometrics and AI, we're seeing that like the US is winning. Absent that, when you like ban biometrics, we're seeing that like China would be able to win because we have like no development. That's our entire argument. They basically read like uniqueness for us. But then they said that like in first class, I told her that like it's only key to like medicine. I gave her an example because she asked for one. But basically, our evidence what it tells you is that biometrics is key to like AI overall. Like all large language models and all AI like is very key for biometrics. It's like a huge type of data, the best type of data in AI model. At that point, since that's the only thing they've seen in our case, we're getting a clean link into extinction. But they have like, they also read the argument that like other bans trigger, but specifically biometrics is the best type of data because like the largest amount has like the largest point they even
like reason as to why other bans are like keep a bright light for biometrics to find that. At that point, we're running our link into Extinction via a US-China hegemonic war. But that now lies go away. First, they try to tell you that Extinction is the biggest impact in the round. We would agree, but you prefer our link because you can break the clash between their link on like CC and pandemics and our link on the war because they give you literally no warning as to why there will be any type of extinction scenario. Probably for our star card tells you that when the US and China go into a war, because China becomes a hegemon, the rising hegemon always goes into war with the declining power. And when they go into war, it would become a nuclear war. That's a very clear link. The nuclear war leads to extinction. Insofar as like they give you absolutely no link, that's why CC or pandemics cause any type of extinction, we give you the clear warning you can break the clash here. But then on the prereq on their case, when the US fights China, the EU would inevitably get drawn in by things like NATO and a lot of things like that. When they're fighting a war with China, they can't innovate because all their money and resources go to war. The only thing they say here is that there's no war if there's a cooperation. But they give you no warning as to why like innovation on like these like CC and pandemics things would lead to stopping war. For our like prerequisites like much better warning. Then go to their case. On EU, you can extend the piece of evidence from Loma, which tells you that the EU just announced reaching an agreement with the US on a revived transatlantic data flow deal that terminally not use their entire case because it means that the deal that's like key to their entire link has already been solved. They said they posted it's not happening, but the reason because we're literally cooperating right now, they give you like no response there. But then the US and the EU always had the incentive to cooperate on the like climate cooperation. They're not just gonna let like all of humanity die, they're probably gonna cooperate like ignore this data sharing. They said their evidence is explicit that data sharing is always key, but like it does take into account their actual motives. Insofar as like data sharing is like not the only thing that like, they can do, they're probably like always gonna have the incentive to do things anyway. Then on their impact, there's no contextualization as to what existing scenarios like cooperation solid. There's no impact of climate change or pandemics. Don't let them make like a new one and final focus. It's way too late for that. They give you no quantification of how many people would die and which way it would happen. At that point, you should probably prefer our impact is much clearer. But then you can probably extend like the prereq on FTC as well. We're winning here. Going to is that like right now because AI can solve that for FTC by like automating like a lot of low-level workers, they'll be free up to focus on like bigger things like what they say like just like focusing on gas and oil companies. What happens then is that, like you can probably solve it in a much better way. Like if they don't respond to this, we're probably winning their link here on this existential threat. Even if you want to grant them like any offense here, it's going for us.
Are we good for cross?
Sure.
Alright.
We have first question.
Oh, go first.
Okay,
So-
sure. Why is that?
Okay.
We have first question.
You got the questions still across. Like, I'm gonna let you ask questions. Okay. What actors does your evidence saying like the EU disagree with the US? What actors passed that agreement?
Wait. The first one, I'm sure you can like repeat it.
Yeah. So your evidence only says the legislature passed like these agreements.
But the thing
Here's
is
the
that
issue. You really missed the word that we read, which basically says that the court will always overturn anything that the legislature tries to pass because the court is who has uncertainty.
But the thing is that we're already cooperating right now. Insofar as this deal has happened and we haven't seen like pandemics, climate change, extinction, like you're like giant impacts, I would say we're probably cooperating with the EU.
I mean, like,
Or-
I'd say, sorry, I just
or
say like
that-
you're
or that-
wrong.
or
Like
that-
our evidence just post-days that it literally says explicitly the warranting.
No,
You never
I mean-
responded to that warranting like throughout the entire
mean-
round. You can't bring up a new
Wait.
response to the cross.
Your argument is that if we don't cooperate with the EU, like this like laundry list of impacts happen. I'm
Yeah.
saying that hasn't happened. That all means we're cooperating with the EU.
Yeah, it's like it hasn't happened.
With like
But-
biometrics absent of him.
Yeah.
Yes, but existential threats that are upcoming, we can actually solve with US EU cooperation. And the same thing applies to you. Your existential scenario hasn't happened yet. I would argue that like
Because we
it's
haven't
coming in the
banned
near
biometrics.
future.
So the thing is, like,
I mean,
we're defending the status quo.
Yeah, we're defending
So
the
we're
status
defending the
quo.
status quo.
You're defending
obviously,
Right,
that our thing hasn't happened.
Like,
you haven't.
Like of course ours have. I just banned biometrics. We're defending the status quo. You guys are defending like all status.
Sure, you can have a question.
Okay. Let's talk about these like existential risks that you say like police extinction. COVID happened, that's a pandemic. I'm not dead. Facing climate change, I'm not dead. Like how does term like extinction like the word extinction is never in the like constructive speech.
It
It's fine,
is
it's
like
fine.
read the evidence. It literally says they are existential threats. Like read the evidence.
Yes, pandemics are an existential threat, but I'm not dead. Like
Okay,
COVID
but
happened, I should not have it.
you're talking
I
about
could go
one
online on
pandemic.
Medium. I
Like,
could go
okay,
online
I
on
don't
Medium
care
and
if
write,
one
like, pandemics are
pandemic
existential
didn't
threats.
kill everyone, but in the future, other lethal diseases
Wait,
can kill
wait.
people and actually
It was
lead to
a
extinction. That's why
global
our
pandemic.
evidence, can I like finish? Our evidence is pretty explicit in saying that things like pandemics and climate are existential. I mean, you can like read the evidence.
Yeah,
Like, I don't really know
I
what
mean,
you want
it's
to
like
say.
with your evidence, there's like no warranty, right? Like I can go online on Medium and write like pandemics are existential. If I give no other
It's
reason,
not
no
me,
one's
it's
going to buy it. You should probably
It's
just
not-
And also like if I like look outside like pandemic extinction, like I would say like that's probably a better like predicament than like your evidence.
Yeah, our evidence is pretty consistent in saying that these are upcoming threats. Like it's pretty clear on like the time frame debate. I don't know what else you want to say.
But it's not too clear time to be like what is gonna happen.
Our our evidence just says there are
If you say-
upcoming threats, and for these upcoming threats, we can actually combat them. The same thing applies to the prereq that we extend when you tell us, oh, what's going to happen? What we told you in summary is that EU-US cooperation can mediate or like prevent escalation. That's our argument. Okay, I'll just like take a question in the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, sure. Why is data sharing like not key to things like clinical trials?
Wait, what?
Like you just tell me like, oh, data sharing isn't key to cooperation.
I mean, like-
we give you like multiple examples where it is. Like you never give us any warranting on like why it's not key.
The warning is like that people always have the
That's
incentive,
fine.
right?
Like, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
It's a different response, yeah.
I mean, it's the same response.
Is everyone good? Fantastic. It's going to be our case, Wang, their case. The round is over, and I'll see one about the EU. It's very clear. We tell you that right now we are not going to have a massive privacy framework because of U.S. laws that allow biometrics. This is really bad because the Court of Justice will never approve the framework. Luckily, it bans all and creates legal certainty, which allows the EU to go into the deal. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because Toboggan tells you that EU-US co-op is key to solving all existential threats like climate, pandemics, and nuclear risk. Their impact is literally a nuclear risk, meaning we control the prereq. They give you a couple responses. At the top, they tell you an agreement's coming now. Their evidence is just about the economic department. Remember, the Court of Justice who focus on the legality side will always project. That was in summary. Then they say on the impact that the EU and the US will always cooperate on existential risk. But remember what Ellie tells you. This is a building block. It's a building block because it creates the legal environment. Without the legal environment, the incentive doesn't matter because they are legally not allowed to actually cooperate. Let's go on to the Wang debate. Remember, we both impact out to Extinction. At this point, it's a link debate. They do not actually do a good job with the comparison. They just say the rising hegemon will always lead to war. The big problem here is it doesn't interact with our Ryan evidence. We tell you that cooperation allows us to stop China from becoming a rising hegemon. It stops the war because it allows for a concerted Western response. That prevents the war scenario. All of the responses to similar war in which the US and the EU are drawn in post the war starting. The problem is they don't interact with Ryan, which proves the war does not start. You don't have to look to their side of the flow when they functionally concede the fact that EU-US cooperation deters and solves for any conflict with China, thus preventing extinction. Let's go into their side of the flow. Even if you want to evaluate it, they're not winning. They just say that China is rising right now, is not rising right now, and that's because of the US. However, they once again don't interact with the warranting it out for you. It tells you China's not rising right now because they don't have the capability. Remember what we've told you in every single speech. All of their technology is focused on things like surveillance. That means they don't have the military readiness to ever use it in an aggressive setting. But secondly, remember their evidence, their CA card is just about any scientific band. They just say it's specific to biometrics. No, that's not true. At that point, fetal tissue should have triggered the link. But remember, we control direction because we stop the war from actually materializing. We don't look retrospectively, we look at the present.
We have no crap. It's gonna be it'll be AI weighing their case. Anyone not ready? Time starts now. AI is the easiest place to boast an AI ban would stop all applications and America's AI advantages biometric data used to train AI including by state laws destroying advancements. This law is trying to gain lead innovation on China overtake the US hegemonically escape to transition more risk nuclear miscalc and extinction via famine. They made a couple responses. They say the US is dominant AI. That is their argument. The US is dominant right now. When then ban happens, they lose that dominance. China starts a war. They say China has no ability to start a war. Yes, we say China has lead right now. If they're in a close race, also on the summary speech, don't buy it. Then they say other events trigger. No, it's not. They dropped models now, so indicates this is the largest data set. And also because biometrics uniquely key to training AI models, they ban the past didn't work, but now it will. At that point, we're winning AI, we're winning the round. Go to the wing. They don't really handle the argument that we say, sure, it's a link to it, but they brought that our argument is the biggest impact. Thermonuclear war extinction is the biggest impact around. It eradicates all species. Prefer us because you look at every single possible extinction scenario that we prevent. Also, you can bring the national warranty question. They give you no warranty. Some reasons why the EU's that's why EU's cooperation solves the impact. They bring away brand new analysis, the final focus speech. Also, insofar they're fighting a trenchant war with China's matter, the EU is they're using a cooperate them. We're facing a direct war. China, the EU can't be drawn in. At that point, they're like Lincoln or they're like Lincoln does not matter. Also, they have dropped their response that because we actually, they have also dropped the period on their second argument about FCA case that because we streamline these things and make like automated work better, we saw back these like risks that they talked about in their case as well. Go to their case. They're not winning their argument. They have dropped that we're solving these issues right now. The Loma needs to be passed and deal, and we're like doing it in like agreement. They say that it could be stopped. No, it's not. Insofar as their risks haven't happened and like are being solved right now, as they are happening. They say it happens in the future. When does it happen? Where does it happen? How does it happen? It's never brought up once. They say these risks lead to extinction. It's never brought up. Like, it's never brought up. They just say like pandemics happen, like extinction happens, these nuclear risks happens. It's never much like terminalized, quantified like in a speech. Also, they have dropped the fact that the US and the EU always have the incentive to cooperate on things. That means that if a pandemic happens in the future, if like a nuclear risk happens in the future, they always cooperate. At that point, we are winning the fact that AI innovation stalls back for a Chinese war, and they're not winning their argument, and also their impact is ludicrous. It's too big to vote on. You're preferring us only Lincoln, and we're also winning like FTC as well.
Good.